Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between to the Count Crane Show, the show where I talk about whatever I feel like and we have fun whilst doing it. In today's episode, I'm reviewing the new Walking With Dinosaurs revival series. You're a tad late on this one, boss. I know, Quentin, but other commitments have prevented me from doing this review sooner. So let's get started. Walking With Dinosaurs 2025 is a revival of the landmark 1999 dinosaur documentary of the same name. Each episode details the story of a dinosaur discovered at a dig site, with episodes split between CGI sequences set in the Mesozoic and modern-day scenes with paleontologists. The original Walking With Dinosaurs is one of the quintessential dinosaur documentaries and a childhood classic of myself and countless others. So the prospect of a new series, with new dinosaurs, new stories, and more up-to-date information and effects, was exciting. And now, after having watched the series, does it live up to that potential? No. No, it does not. But first, let's start with what I liked. This show looks great. There are some truly beautiful location shots both in the present and the past, and I love the expansive wide shots of Pachyrhinosaurus and Edmontosaurus herds on the move. Although I do feel the prehistoric locations aren't that unique from one another and kind of blend together. A consequence of the show focusing so much on Cretaceous North America, but I'll talk more about that later. I do like how we transition into the dinosaur segments, with an establishing shot of the planet at the time. Speaking of the dinosaurs, they look great. The models are fantastic and I really like a lot of the designs. Highlights include the Spinosaurus, Utahraptor, Albertosaurus, Lusotitan, and Torvosaurus. Some of the animations are a bit wonky and there are multiple instances of reused animation, but for the most part, they're effective. Although I do lament the lack of practical animatronics and puppets. And there are some good episodes. Episode 6 features a compelling story about an old bull Lusotitan getting crippled by a rival male who steals his mate, and the old bull recovering from the injury whilst fending off predators. But the best episode for me is unquestionably episode 2 with Sobek the Spinosaurus. This episode is full of great moments and is the closest this show gets to recapturing the magic of the original. Highlights include the confrontation between Sobek and Carcharodontosaurus, the forest scene with the Elanco, which is a genuinely creepy atmosphere, and the final scenes with Sobek hunting Onchopristis and dying after a battle with another Spinosaurus. A genuinely tragic and emotional ending to the episode. I also enjoyed the social behaviors we got to see with the Albertosaurus, Gastonia, and Lusotitan. The Spinosaurus using their sails to intimidate each other was cool, and I love the scene where the bull Lusotitan eats some pliosaur bones to heal its wounded leg, a behavior performed by modern-day giraffes to supplement their diets. However, this is where my praise for the show ends, because for the most part, I find this series to be an unremarkable, boring, and downright frustrating viewing experience. For starters, although the stories are sound in concept, their execution feels underdeveloped and rushed, because there are a few quiet moments where the animals just go about their day between the big scenes. They're also bogged down by some very strange choices and just plainly stupid moments, like in episode 3 where a Utahraptor pushes over an almost adult Gastonia, or in episode 1 where a baby Triceratops and a Edmontosaurus befriend each other like it's the land before time, and how every predator is somehow incapable of landing a hit on a baby Ceratopsian. Also, I can't ignore the obvious similarities episode 5 has to both the Walking With Dinosaurs movie and March of the Dinosaurs. One of the biggest differences between the new series and the original is that 2025 is far more main character focused. When I watch this new series, I feel like everything is about the main dinosaur, and not the world that they live in, which makes the world feel shallow, lifeless, and boring. It doesn't help that the show's creature roster is pitifully low, with most episodes having only 4 or 3 animals. On top of this, episodes 1, 4, and 5 have basically the same roster, with a Tyrannosaur, a Ceratopsian, Edmontosaurus, and an Esdarkid, and episodes 3 and 6 have a combined roster of Gastonia, Utahraptor, a very brief appearance from Platycoxa, Lusotitan, Torvosaurus, and an unnamed dead pliosaur. For comparison, the original Walking With Dinosaurs first episode, New Blood, featured Coelophysis, Postosuchus, Placerius, Cynodont, Patinosaurus, and Platysaurus at the end. That's 6 animals in just one episode. And a lot of the non-main character animals get little screen time or exploration. Carnivores like T-Rex, Utahraptor, and Carcharodontosaurus are mostly limited to just hunting animals. A Rhinoceratops and Cryodraken only get one scene where they only exist as prey items for Albertosaurus. And Platycoxa and Elosuchus get a few minutes of attention in the modern day scenes, yet are only on screen for less than a minute. There's also almost no exploration into non-dinosaurian animals. Pterosaur representation is limited to just Esdarkids, the only glimpse at marine life we get is a dead ammonite and pliosaur, and there's no exploration into Mesozoic mammals, birds, insects, or other non-dinosaur animals except for Onchopristis. When I watch this show, I don't feel like I'm watching a living, breathing world filled with a variety of different animals with their own unique behaviors and dynamics with each other. It feels like it's just Utahraptor and Gastonia, or it's just Albertosaurus and Amontosaurus, and no one else matters. And it's not just the animal roster that's limited, but the time periods and locations as well. This show hyper-focuses on Cretaceous North America, with only 2 episodes set on other continents and only 1 Jurassic episode. It's not that Cretaceous North America is uninteresting, far from it, but it's just one slice of a gigantic and equally interesting pie, and by ignoring the rest of that pie, the show feels extremely limited and narrow in its scope. Compare this to the original series, which took us on a grand journey from dinosaurs' humble beginnings in the Triassic, to their rise in the Jurassic, to their extinction in the Cretaceous, traveling from North America to Europe, South America to Australia, exploring everything about their world, from the dinosaurs themselves to pterosaurs, marine animals, mammals, birds, and even insects. And here, all we get is Cretaceous North America, Cretaceous Africa, Cretaceous North America, more Cretaceous North America, even more Cretaceous North America, and Jurassic Europe, with a handful of animals, most of whom aren't even adequately explored. Overall, my biggest criticism of this show is that it feels so much more limited than the original. Despite having longer episodes and more up-to-date information, it feels like there is less here than its quarter-of-a-century-old predecessor. But the dinosaur segments are only half the show. What about the other half with the paleontologists? Well, unfortunately, the paleontologist scenes are easily the worst part of this show. And I say this meaning no disrespect whatsoever to the paleontologists featured, who do a lot of hard work to better understand these animals. And to be fair, some of the segments, like the ones about UV laser drones and pollen analysis, are genuinely interesting. But for the most part, I find these sequences to be superfluous, intrusive, and boringly repetitive. The majority of the information in them is extremely basic and obvious, like Triceratops had large horns, or Lusotitan was really big and tall, which can easily be conveyed by just showing the dinosaurs. There's an awkward air to the scenes as well, because the paleontologists are explaining this basic information to each other, and not the audience. And they're just really boring to watch. So much of them is just paleontologists digging rock, putting bones in plaster, or just walking. I thought this was Walking with Dinosaurs, not Walking with Paleontologists. Exactly. I got so sick and tired of seeing these people just slowly chipping away at rock for 6 episodes. But the worst part about these segments is that they constantly interrupt the dinosaur scenes, killing any immersion or tension built up by the narrative. Episode 1 is the most egregious example of this. There's a scene where a T-Rex and Triceratops are having a standoff, and the music is building, the tension is rising, and then we cut to the paleontologist for a segment about how Triceratops could flush blood into their frills. And this completely took me out of the scene and just ruined the experience. And what's worse is that a few moments later, as the Rex looms menacingly over a baby trike, we cut back to the present again, where the narrator explains that there were no signs of predation on the baby skeleton. As for the show's other aspects, I'd class most of them as serviceable at best. Bertie Carvel takes on narrating duties, and he's fine, but neither his narration or the script he has is really noteworthy. There are some standout bits of music, but it's not a score I'm dying to revisit. The sound effects for the animals are appropriate, but not very distinct, and the show's intro is uninspired and forgettable, just a montage of clips with some narration and music. There's no filter or effect on the clips to make them more striking, and the narration and music are pretty generic. These elements all serve their purpose, but they're rather forgettable. One aspect of the show that I found distracting though was the censorship, as in kills were often obscured by either a log or a rock, or the camera cuts away and all we see is blood on the carnivor's snout. It's a sanitized take on naturalistic violence that's been dumbed down in order to appeal to kids, which I find really insulting. The worst example of this is at the end of episode 5, where the Pachyrhinosaurus herd is killed by a flood, and all we see are slow motion shots of the river approaching and then a fade to black. We don't see the herd getting swept away, or drowning in the water, or even their lifeless bodies strewn across the land. And then the episode concludes by saying that somehow, some of the herd survived. It's a cop-out ending that has no emotional weight, because the show doesn't actually have the guts to show the death this flood caused. In conclusion, I give Walking with Dinosaurs 2025 a 4 out of 10. Mediocre. There are things to enjoy about this show, but for every positive I can give, there are 2 to 3 negatives that drag this show down. As the Walking With documentary, it's nigh unrecognizable, and independent of the show's legacy, it's okay at best. Had it bore a different name, I would have been more forgiving, but because it bears the name of such a landmark series, that brings a level of expectations to the show that it doesn't come anywhere close to meeting. It's a mediocre, boring, run-of-the-mill documentary with the Walking With Dinosaurs name slapped on it for brand recognition. I highly doubt anyone will fondly remember or talk about this series in 25 years' time, let alone 1 year's time. I myself have no desire to return to this show outside of the second episode, and I am thankful that I never have to watch this series ever again. On to you, folks. What do you think of this new show? Do you like it? Dislike it? Do you think I was too harsh on it? Leave your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, like, subscribe, share, you know the drill. And tune in next time for whatever out of the hat discussion I have next.